If your mother were dying and the hospital demanded $87,000 by midnight, what would you do? This girl posted a desperate message online. "I'll do anything. Please, save my mom." A stranger replied with just one sentence. "I'll pay, but only for one night." She had no idea the man behind that message was the richest billionaire in the state of Texas. But the most shocking part wasn't the money. It was that real love began on the very night that was supposed to ruin her. It was supposed to be a quiet night, the kind of night where the only sound is the wind brushing through the cracked window panes and the hum of a dying refrigerator flickering every few seconds. But for Alina Reyes, 21 years old, sitting at the edge of a hospital bed holding her mother's cold hand, quiet had never felt so loud. Her mother, Marisol Reyes, lay unconscious under thin white sheets, her skin pale, oxygen mask fogging up with every fragile breath. The doctors had given Alina a number, not a diagnosis, not a treatment plan. A number, $87,000. That's what it would take to keep her mother alive. Emergency surgery, post-op care, medication, no insurance, no more time. They might as well have told her to pluck the stars out of the sky. She had already sold everything. Her car, her jewelry, even her late father's watch. The last thing of value left from the man who raised her with stories of honor and pride. She'd begged her estranged relatives, called old classmates, emailed employers who hadn't hired her. Every door closed. And now the nurse had just said, "If we don't receive payment by morning, we'll have to discharge her." Discharge. What a polite word for death. Alina walked out into the hospital parking lot. The cold Texas night bit into her skin through her threadbare sweater. She didn't cry. Not because she wasn't broken, but because she had no tears left. She pulled out her phone, opened her browser, and hesitated, then typed 4 words that made her stomach churn. "I'll do anything, please." She posted it anonymously on a classified ad site, under the miscellaneous section. She didn't say what it was for. She didn't give a name. She just wrote, "Desperate girl in Houston. My mother is dying. I need $87,000 by tomorrow. We'll do whatever it takes. Please, no games." She stared at it for a full minute. Her thumb hovered over post. She thought of her mother's lullabies, of the rosary she still held in her palm even in a coma, of the nights she'd worked 2 jobs so Alina could go to school. And then she pressed post. Within 5 minutes, she had 72 messages. Within 10, she had 3 offers that turned her stomach inside out. Men asking for pictures, some laughing. Others, serious. One message, however, was different. "I'll give you exactly what you need. $87,000, one night. No questions, no contact after. If you accept, send your location. I'll be there in 30 minutes. No name, no phone number. Just a black and white profile icon." The username read, TX_North Star. She stared at the message like it was a loaded gun. Was this real? Was it a trap? Was it her only chance? She copied the hospital's address and sent it. A reply came instantly. "Meet me at Hotel Amara, room 1207. Key will be waiting. Come alone." Alina's hands trembled. She looked back at the hospital. Through the window of room 412, she could see her mother's silhouette, small, fading. Her legs felt like stone as she walked to the nearest bus stop. Then she stopped. No more buses this late. She took a breath and started walking. Each step felt like it tore a piece of her soul out of her shoes. She crossed 4 intersections, passed 2 strip malls, and walked a 1.5 miles in the dark. No music, no distractions, just her heartbeat and the wind. She arrived at the hotel just after 11:45 p.m. It was one of those places she'd only seen from a distance. Sleek marble entrance, golden elevators, too clean to touch. A doorman looked at her suspiciously but said nothing. She stepped inside. At the front desk, a room key was already waiting under a different name. Room 1207. She stepped into the elevator, her fingers shaking as she pressed the button. Floor 12. Each ding of the elevator felt like a countdown to something she couldn't reverse. When the doors opened, the hallway was silent. She walked, knees weak, heart heavy, until she reached the room. The key slid in. The green light flashed. The door opened. Inside, silence. Soft lighting, expensive cologne in the air, and a man seated at the edge of the bed, back turned to her, dressed in a tailored suit. He didn't move, didn't speak, until he said, with a voice calm and deep, "Close the door behind you, Alina." She froze. "How do you know my name?" He turned and smiled. He was younger than she expected. No gray hair, no potbelly, no predatory eyes. The man sitting before her looked like someone who belonged at a Forbes gala, not in a hotel room arranging desperate transactions. His hair was dark, styled effortlessly, his posture straight, confident. But what struck her most were his eyes. Storm gray, focused, unwavering, not hungry, not cruel, just unreadable. "How do you know my name?" she repeated, this time louder, firmer. He stood up slowly, his tailored black suit perfectly pressed, his cufflinks catching the soft hotel light. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the minibar, opened it, and poured a glass of water, then handed it to her. "You posted from a hospital IP address. Took me 3 minutes to trace which room the post came from. Only one patient in critical care on that floor. Name, Marisol Reyes. Next of kin, Alina Reyes. You." He took a sip from his own glass. "I like to know who I'm doing business with." Alina's throat tightened. She didn't take the glass. "You hacked the hospital?" He raised an eyebrow, amused. "I don't hack. I pay people who do." That answer alone made her knees go a little weak. She clutched her tote bag tighter. "So this is real?" she whispered. "You'll really pay me that much?" He nodded, calm as stone. 87,000. Exactly what you asked for. I'll wire it to the hospital the moment we're done here. Tonight. No games, no recording, no judgment. Alina didn't know whether to feel relieved or disgusted. Maybe both. "Why me?" she asked, voice barely audible. He tilted his head slightly, studying her. "Because you weren't selling yourself," he said. "You were selling your desperation. That's rarer and more honest." A silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. She looked down at her hands. They were trembling. "I've never done this." "I know." She looked up sharply. "How?" He gave her a slow, measured look. "Because girls who've done this before don't tremble. They don't hesitate. They don't come in with their shoes scuffed from walking 2 miles in the dark. And they don't stare at the exit every 3 seconds like it's the only way to save their soul." Alina swallowed hard. "So what happens now?" she asked. He stepped back, giving her space, not moving toward her, not reaching out. He didn't leer. He didn't touch. "You can walk out that door right now," he said. "And I'll still send 20 grand to the hospital. Call it a gesture of respect. But if you stay, we do this once. One night. No force. No shame. No strings. And the full amount gets transferred immediately." Alina's breath hitched. This wasn't how she imagined it. Not at all. No champagne. No silk sheets. No sweet lies. Just reality. Plain, terrifying reality. But she thought of the beeping monitor in room 412. Her mother's hand, so frail. The years she spent raising Alina alone, working as a cleaner at a law office, saving every dime so her daughter could have a better life. And now, here was Alina, about to buy back her mother's heartbeat, with her own body. She nodded. "I'll stay." The man nodded once, solemnly, like he'd just witnessed a vow. "Then we begin." What followed wasn't what she expected. No violence, no humiliation, no demands that made her cry in the shower. In fact, he asked questions first. "Are you okay? Do you want the lights off? Do you want me to stop at any time? Just say the word." He treated her not like a body, but like a person. She didn't know what to make of it. That, more than anything, unraveled her. It happened, once. And when it was over, he handed her a towel, let her dress, and then sat beside her on the edge of the bed. Not touching, not speaking, just breathing. Then he reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a phone, and with 3 taps, sent a confirmation. "It's done," he said. "The hospital received the payment." Alina blinked. "You're sure?" He turned the screen to her. "A wire transfer. $87,000 to Houston Medical Center. Cleared. Final." She covered her mouth, trying to stop the sob that surged up her throat. She couldn't. It burst out of her. Not from shame, not even from relief. Just release. She cried for her mother, for herself, For the years of carrying too much with too little. The man beside her didn't try to comfort her. He just sat, quiet, respectful. When she finally calmed, she looked at him again. "What's your name?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "It doesn't matter." "Please," she said softly. "I want to know." He hesitated, then said simply, "Nathan." No last name, no titles, just Nathan. She nodded and left without another word. Outside, the air smelled of wet concrete and roses. It had rained while she was inside. Alina looked up at the sky, her lungs filling with something she hadn't tasted in days. Hope. She didn't know who Nathan was. She didn't know what he wanted. But she knew without question that tonight, a stranger had saved her mother's life. And maybe something else inside her too. The world didn't look different the next morning, but Alina did. The streetlights still blinked lazily. The traffic still crawled along the 610 loop like molasses. The cafeteria coffee at Houston Medical still tasted like burned regret. But when Alina stepped through the hospital's automatic doors just past 6 a.m., clothes still slightly damp from the night before, the nurses looked at her with something she hadn't seen in days. Respect. The payment had cleared. Room 412 was no longer on the pending discharge list. Her mother was back on the surgery schedule. The specialists were reviewing her chart. Words like transfusion, hopeful prognosis, and next steps were tossed around like normal again, as if yesterday's threat of death hadn't existed. But for Alina, it still did, because her mother was alive now, thanks to what she had done last night. She sat beside her mother's bed in silence. Her mother still hadn't woken up. Machines beeped rhythmically. 4 drips pulsed. Alina reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from her mother's forehead. "You're going to make it, Mama," she whispered. "You're going to live." And then she added more quietly, almost afraid of her own voice, "I just don't know who I'll be when you wake up." She stayed there for hours. She didn't cry. She didn't sleep. She just stayed. Because after everything, she didn't know where else to go. Later that day, she walked back to her small studio apartment, the one she shared with a flickering light bulb, a leaky sink, and 2 dying houseplants she kept trying to revive. She peeled off her clothes, took the longest shower of her life, and scrubbed herself raw until her skin stung. But it wasn't about shame. Not exactly. It was about the weight she carried now. A strange, quiet heaviness that didn't quite feel like guilt, but definitely wasn't peace. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept replaying every moment from the hotel room. Not just what happened, but how it happened. The way he looked at her. Not like a man buying something, but like someone trying not to scare a bird perched on his fingertips. The way he asked permission for everything. The way he never once touched her after it was done. He didn't take advantage. He didn't gloat. He just gave. And then disappeared. That part unnerved her the most. The silence. No messages, no follow-up, no offers to see her again. No "are you okay?" or "let me take care of you." No possessiveness. No drama. He had just given her what she asked for and vanished, as if he'd never existed. The next morning, Alina checked the news. She didn't know what she was looking for. Maybe a clue, a headline, a mention of someone named Nathan who had done something remarkable, or reckless, or romantic. But there was nothing. She even went back to the website where she'd posted her desperate ad. Gone. Not just the post, her entire account. She opened her inbox. Nothing. She typed in his username, TX_North Star. No results. It was as if he had planned to erase himself from her life the moment she stepped out of that hotel room. It should have been a relief. It wasn't. A week passed. Her mother's surgery was a success. Her condition was stable. Her eyes fluttered open for the first time, and Alina cried like a child when she whispered Mia. Alina had expected that moment to feel like redemption. Instead, it felt like being split in half, because her mother looked at her like she was whole, untouched, the same daughter she'd always believed in. And Alina knew she wasn't. 2 weeks later, Alina returned to the hospital to drop off paperwork for her mom's aftercare program. On the way out, she passed a TV mounted in the corner of the lobby, muted, subtitled, a business report playing. She almost didn't look, until she saw him. Her heart skipped so hard she felt dizzy. There, on the screen, walking through the lobby of a high-rise in Dallas, flanked by 2 assistants, dressed in the exact same black suit from that night, was Nathan. Only this time, the caption below him didn't just say his first name. It said, Nathaniel King, founder and CEO, King Dominion Energy, net worth $18.2 billion. Her hands went cold. Her Nathan, the man she thought was just some anonymous loner, was the richest man in Texas. And he'd never told her, never hinted, never used it to seduce or manipulate her, never bragged, never tried to impress. He just paid and disappeared. Why? Why would someone with that kind of power help someone like her, then walk away as if it meant nothing? Why her? That night, Alina didn't sleep again. But this time, the silence in her apartment didn't feel like guilt. It felt like a question with no answer, and it haunted her more than anything else. She hadn't seen him since that night. No message, no name, no reason to believe she ever would. But fate doesn't always ask for permission. It happened on a slow Tuesday afternoon. Alina was leaving her shift at the bookstore, rain drizzling lightly across the sidewalk. As she stepped out, her umbrella flipped inside out with a gust of wind. And then, there he was, standing by the edge of the street holding a coffee cup, dressed in a simple black windbreaker and worn jeans, hair damp from the rain. His eyes locked with hers like the universe had just pushed them back together. Her breath caught in her throat. Nathan, he smiled, gently, almost apologetically. Hey, how did you? I work nearby. He lied smoothly, motioning toward the parking garage across the street. Valet, for one of the hotels. Saw you through the window. Alina blinked, stunned. You're a valet. He nodded without hesitation. Yeah, it's a humble gig. Pays the rent. She stared at him, searching for something. Pride, shame, a joke. But he just looked calm, grounded, human. Not like a man with billions in the bank. Something in her chest eased. Well, she said slowly, I owe you a thank you. For that night, you saved my mother. He shook his head gently. Number you did. I just gave you the time you needed to save her. The rain drizzled harder, but neither moved. She hesitated, then finally said, Can I buy you a coffee? Nathan smiled, eyes soft. Only if I get to return the favor next time. And just like that, fate reopened the door they thought had closed forever. That coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into long walks, and walks turned into nights where they talked for hours in her tiny apartment, lying on the floor, laughing about nothing at all. Nathan never brought up money. He never acted like he had more than a few bills in his wallet. Alina never asked. She liked the way he made her feel, like she could breathe, like she was more than her struggles, like she was enough. And Nathan, he watched her blossom. He learned that she dreamed of becoming a nurse, that she loved mangoes but hated the texture, that she used to sing quietly to herself when doing the dishes. He didn't tell her about his penthouse in Austin, or the companies he controlled, or the fact that the nursing scholarship she magically received last month had come from an anonymous donor with the initials NK. He just showed up, every day. He helped her study, cooked her eggs when she worked late, paid their rent quietly through a landlord connection, all the while pretending he was just a guy trying to make ends meet. And she never doubted him. Not even when they moved in together to a slightly nicer place near the university. Not even when her classmates questioned why a valet boyfriend always showed up in clean, pressed clothes and never seemed to struggle. Because he's a good man, Alina would say. That's enough for me. She didn't care about money, or titles, or fairy tales. She just loved him. And that, for Nathan, was everything. Life had finally begun to feel stable. Alina's mother, Marisol, was doing well, attending regular checkups, gaining weight, even taking short walks outside with her cane. Alina herself was now in her second semester of nursing school, thriving, slowly building a future she never thought possible. And Nathan, sweet, quiet, ever-dependable Nathan, remained by her side through it all. He woke her with tea on exam mornings. He waited outside the campus with his tattered book in hand, pretending to be bored, but smiling the second she came into view. They cooked together, laughed, slept under the same roof like they'd been together for years. They didn't have much, but they had enough. Until the day everything cracked again. It started with a phone call. the kind that freezes time. Alina had just left class when her phone buzzed. It was the hospital, again. "Your mother collapsed this morning," the nurse said. "There's internal bleeding. We're rushing her into surgery, but..." There it was again. That word. But. "She needs an emergency procedure. High risk. Out of coverage. The estimated cost is $210,000. I'm so sorry, Miss Reyes." Alina stopped walking. The world around her blurred. Trees, cars, laughter from across the quad, all meaningless. She mumbled a thank you and hung up. For a moment, she just stood there. Then slowly, she turned and walked home, her heart moving faster than her steps, her thoughts spiraling into places she didn't want to revisit. She opened the apartment door and saw Nathan in the kitchen, humming as he stirred a pot of soup. His face lit up. "You're early." "She collapsed," Alina said, voice hollow. "My mom, internal bleeding. They need to operate tonight." Nathan froze. "Is she stable?" "For now." He moved toward her. "What's the cost?" Alina looked up. Her eyes were already brimming with tears. $210,000, she whispered. "And I have nothing." She slumped into the chair. Nathan didn't say anything right away. He just stood there, silent, jaw clenched. Alina stared down at her trembling hands. "I can't lose her, Nathan," she choked. "Not after everything. I can't go back to that place again. Not that night. Not that feeling." Nathan kneeled in front of her, gently taking her hand. "You won't," he said softly. "We'll figure it out." "How? Are you going to sell your car? Your tips from valet shifts?" She said it bitterly, immediately regretted it. "I didn't mean..." He shook his head. "It's okay." Then he stood, walked into the bedroom, and closed the door behind him. Alina sat in stunned silence. 15 minutes passed. Then her phone buzzed. A call from the hospital's finance department. "Miss Reyes, the full amount has been paid. The funds cleared moments ago. Surgery is being prepped now. You can relax." She blinked. What?" "An anonymous donor. No name provided. But the funds are verified." Alina stared at the screen. She rose slowly and walked to the bedroom door. Opened it. Nathan stood by the window, phone still in his hand, staring out at the darkening skyline. She stepped in quietly. "Nathan," she said, barely above a whisper. "How?" He didn't turn around. "I made a few calls," he replied. "Don't lie." Silence. "You can't keep pretending," she said, voice shaking. "You're not a valet." He closed his eyes. "No," he admitted. "I'm not." Alina's chest tightened. "Then who are you?" He finally turned. His voice when he spoke was quiet, but rang through her like a bell. "My name is Nathaniel King." Alina's knees nearly gave out. "The man from the news?" she whispered. "The billionaire energy guy?" "Yes." Silence thundered between them. "You lied to me," she said. "I didn't want to," he answered. "But if I told you who I was from the start, would you have trusted me? Would you have ever seen me?" She shook her head, stepping back. You don't get to do that. You don't get to make me fall in love with a lie." He took a step forward. "I didn't lie to you. I lied about my job, not about my heart, not about how I feel." Alina's eyes filled with tears. "You watched me suffer," she said, "pretending to be poor, pretending to be one of us, all while sitting on billions." "I watched you survive," he corrected. "And I wanted to see if you'd still choose me, when I was nothing but a valet. And you did, every single day." She turned away, furious, broken. He moved closer, gently. "I know I should have told you. I was scared. Scared I'd lose the only real thing in my life." Tears ran down her face. "And now you have," she said. And with that, she walked out the door. That night she didn't sleep. Neither did he. She curled up in her old bedroom at her mother's house. He stood alone in the penthouse he hadn't stepped into in months. Between them stretched a silence deeper than any night they'd shared together. But morning would come, and fate wasn't finished yet. Alina didn't answer his calls, or his texts, or the letter that came in an envelope with no return address, tucked into her mailbox with just 2 words written on the front. "I'm sorry." She didn't know what to believe anymore. Everything had felt so real. The apartment, the soup, The night studying together on the floor. The way he would brush the hair from her eyes while she slept. And yet all of it had been wrapped in a lie. A lie she hadn't asked for, but now couldn't unsee. Her mother, recovering post-op in the next room, noticed her silence. "Mija," she said gently one morning, "you haven't smiled in days. What's going on?" Alina didn't answer. Because how could she explain that the man who saved her, who cooked for her, who loved her so gently, was the same man whose face she saw on Forbes magazine covers, hailed as the most private, most powerful billionaire in Texas, and that he had chosen to pretend to be poor, just to test if she was real. Meanwhile, Nathan sat in his glass-walled penthouse, untouched coffee cooling beside him, watching the sunrise pour gold over a city that suddenly felt empty. He had everything, and yet he had nothing. He tried to focus on the emails flooding his inbox, deals, investments, international calls waiting to be scheduled. But all he could think about was her laugh, her fire, the look on her face when she found out who he truly was. He had made his fortune reading people, anticipating motives. But he hadn't anticipated that honesty, when delayed long enough, becomes betrayal. No matter how pure the intention. He could buy the world, but he couldn't buy her trust. And that terrified him more than any hostile takeover ever had. A week passed. Then two. And then, one quiet Sunday afternoon, Alina received a message from an unknown number. "There's something I need to say. No expectations, no pressure. I just need you to hear it. One last time." Attached was an address. Her finger hovered over the delete button. Then, she grabbed her keys. She arrived at a private garden in River Oaks, tucked behind a wrought iron gate. Roses bloomed along the stone path, and soft piano music drifted in the air. Nathan was standing at the center, not in a suit, just a plain gray sweater and jeans, the way she remembered him. When he saw her, he didn't move forward. He just spoke. "I didn't bring you here to win you back," he began, "because I don't know if that's even possible." She stood still, arms crossed. "I brought you here," he continued, "because I owe you the truth, not just about who I am, but why I did what I did." She said nothing, so he went on. "I've been rich most of my life. I've been chased by people who smiled with their mouths and lied with their eyes. I built walls so high I forgot what it meant to let someone in. Until you." His voice cracked. "That night at the hotel, I thought I was doing something cold, transactional, but then I saw you, this girl shaking in the doorway, terrified but unbroken, and something inside me just shifted." He took a breath. "When I found you again at the bookstore, I panicked. I didn't want to ruin it. I didn't want to become him again. The billionaire, the king, the target. I just wanted to be Nathan, the man who made you laugh when your coffee spilled. The man who could help you become who you were always meant to be." A tear slid down Alina's cheek. She didn't bother to hide it. He stepped 1 foot closer, but still left space. "I lied, yes, but never to hurt you, never to control you. I lied because I was falling in love with a woman who didn't need my money, and that scared the hell out of me." Silence. Then, "I don't need a castle or a crown, Nathan," she said softly. "I just need to know the man I trust won't hide from me, even when the truth is hard." He nodded, swallowing hard. "Then let me prove it. No more hiding. No more tests." He slowly reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small velvet box, opened it. Inside was a ring, elegant, simple, and set with a stone shaped like a teardrop. A single diamond. Not flashy, just quietly perfect. "I didn't bring you here to beg," he whispered. "I brought you here to ask." He knelt. Alina's hands flew to her mouth. "Not because I'm rich, not because I want to fix you, but because you're the only thing I've ever truly wanted that can't be bought." A long pause. Then his voice broke into a whisper. "Will you marry me?" Alina stared down at him, tears in her eyes, 1,000 memories crashing through her. A hospital bed, a hotel room, a bowl of soup, a million lies, and one truth so deep it shook her to the core. He had always loved her, just in the wrong way at first. She knelt too, took his face in her hands, and whispered, "Yes." The garden didn't erupt in cheers. No orchestra played. But the wind swirled gently between the roses, and the sun broke through the clouds, and for the first time in weeks, they both exhaled, together. The wedding wasn't held in a palace. It wasn't covered by tabloids or broadcast to the world. Instead, it took place in the exact garden where Nathan had knelt before her, under soft Texas sunlight, beneath a canopy of white roses, with only a handful of people they loved. Alina walked down the aisle in a gown she chose herself. No designer label, no velvet train, just clean white silk, smooth like peace. On her wrist, she wore in her hand a bouquet of sunflowers. And waiting at the altar was the man who once lied to her, then knelt to her, then gave her his name, not like a possession, but like a promise. They said their vows without microphones, just heart to heart. "I don't want your perfection," Alina whispered. "I want your honesty, your storms, your silences. I want the man who held my hand in the dark when the whole world said I was alone." Nathan's voice cracked as he responded. "I've built empires, but none of it means anything if I can't build a life with you. You saw me when I was just a man with a plate of soup, and you still chose me. That's the kind of love you don't let go of." When the minister said you may kiss the bride, they didn't just kiss. They collapsed into each other, as if every tear, every lie, every test had finally surrendered to the truth. Real love survives the storm, because it chooses to. 2 years later, the Reyes King residence was a beautiful contradiction. The grand staircase at the front looked like something out of a film, but on most days there were toys scattered along the bottom step, and 2 muddy paw prints where the family dog refused to wipe his feet. The kitchen was state-of-the-art, but still somehow always had flour on the counter, because Nathan never stopped trying to master Alina's abuela's biscuit recipe. And in the nursery, laughter. Pure, high-pitched, world-changing laughter. Hope, their daughter, named not just for a feeling, but for what had pulled Alina through every dark moment. Hope now had her mother's fire and her father's quiet strength, and the world had no idea what was coming for it. One morning, Alina sat on the back patio, sipping coffee, watching the sun rise over their land. Nathan came out with the baby monitor in one hand and 2 slices of buttered toast in the other. "She said Papa this morning," he announced with a grin. "She said Pa because she was reaching for pancakes," Alina teased, sipping smugly. They laughed. He sat beside her. For a while, they just watched the wind move through the trees. Then Nathan asked, "Do you regret any of it?" She looked at him, long and full, like she always did when he surprised her by being vulnerable. "No," she said softly. "Not the pain, not the walk to the hotel, not the silence that nearly killed us." "Why not?" "Because if I hadn't been broken," she whispered, "I never would have known how strong I am. And if you hadn't lied, you never would have learned how much the truth matters." Nathan nodded. "I still think about that night sometimes." She turned, smiling gently. "Me too. And if you could go back, knowing everything, would you still walk into that hotel room?" Alina leaned over, pressed a kiss to his cheek. "Not only would I walk in," she said, "I'd walk in barefoot, in the rain, all over again. Because that's the night I met the man who wouldn't let me drown." That evening, a letter arrived from the university. Alina opened it with shaking hands. She'd been accepted into a master's program, full scholarship, nursing and trauma therapy, the final dream. She turned to Nathan, holding the letter to her heart, eyes glassy. "I made it," she whispered. "No," he said, pulling her close. "You built it." The girl who once traded her body for a sliver of time was now a mother, a wife, a future therapist, a lighthouse for women who had once stood where she had stood, full of fear and shame and desperate hope. She had gone from humiliation to the throne of her own heart, not because she married a billionaire, but because she learned that true wealth is loving yourself enough to walk through fire and never stop walking. She was once sold like an object, just to save her dying mother. She once lived with a man the world admired, never knowing he was a billionaire. And when the truth came out, she didn't choose money. She chose truth, loyalty, and dignity. She wasn't crowned with gold. She crowned herself, with her heart, with every wound, every tear, every unbowed step. This isn't just a love story. It's a reminder True love doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. And sometimes, the ones who've been hurt the most are the very ones who deserve the throne of happiness.